Hello everyone, Happy New Year and welcome to another Getting Stuff Painted, my bi-weekly update, give or take, on the various miniatures I've been painting for the games we cover here on the channel, although not just miniatures this time, getting 2024 started on a weird note because I've been painting a lot of scenery. So much so that barely any of it can fit in the screen. There's a lot off to the side here. It's like the world's worst Tetris puzzle over here to get it all onto the desk. But we'll be talking about that amongst other things. Some of these were technically painted last year, but I'm including them now because there's enough painted to do an update. So we have some Warhammer Underworlds, which have already been in a couple of videos. A little bit of scenery, a little bit of Rumble Slam, a little bit of Batman Miniature Games / and DC Universe, and then a fair chunk of Battletech in the form of the other half of the starter box, which I actually painted almost in a day. I think I painted 3 out of the 4 in one day and then painted the next 2 the next. It's actually pretty easy, but I guess we can talk about that once we get over there. As per usual, we'll go from left to right. I'll probably move the miniatures back a little bit just so we can quickly talk about the buildings and how I did them, and also if you want to see them fully, they were in a Battletech battle report. There we go, so I've moved the camera a little bit so I can just show off some of the buildings that I've been painting. I picked these up a long time ago when I was considering trying something of a different scale to the miniature games I had been playing. I can't specifically remember if it was Titanicus or whatever it was called, or maybe it was when I first bought a Battletech Mini or was playing the games and getting very into it and knew that I needed a scale of scenery that I didn't really have covered from anything other than rocks. Actually, it might have been for Bot War as well. That's roughly the same size. So I picked these up ages ago off of Etsy. Pretty cheap. Very cheaply 3D printed. They're not super high quality 3D prints. You can definitely see the filament lines, so I couldn't really use contrast paint as a result on any of them because of the filament lines, because it just, from prior experience with that, the contrast paint just seeps in between each individual line and it doesn't make it look any better really. So in all, I think there's maybe a full dozen buildings here of varying sizes, and you can build them in a couple of different ways. But to paint them up, let's talk about the large ones. To paint them up, I did the same thing I was doing for some of the Warcry scenery, where I spray painted them black. I did a sort of zenithal painting thing where I then used grey once they were dry, angled downwards so it really covered the top, and then just kind of created a shading effect, or gradient effect I should say, down the sides. Then I randomly picked out some windows on them to try and show some signs of life, and then just used a little bit of silver. Didn't even bother using a wash. Oh, and I did use a dry brushing of Elfwing Grey. Now sadly they are kind of geared towards 40k and they do have Aquilas on them. That's about it really. I tried to scrape them off, I tried to cut them off, and it just wasn't really working, so I've just kind of accepted that they're there. It's not like they have copyright on that, I think. Maybe they do. I don't think they do. But either way, that is, I guess the skulls aren't super in keeping with Battletech really there either, but in terms of just having a lot of buildings that are of the correct scale for games of Battletech, I think they more than are adequate. And they were super quick, obviously, with the way I did it. If I wanted to make them look better, I'd try and add a bit more shading, but that's pretty much beyond me and the limitations of the filament lines from the, like you can definitely see down up on the roof here, like this bit here, if that's in focus, right here. Like the filament lines super stand out if it's a low quality 3D print, and this was a while back, to be fair. Like I'm meaning literally years ago I picked these up. I'm pretty sure it was back when I first made the channel, so that's at least 3 years now. So probably a low quality printer, low quality filament, and it definitely shows, but it is adequate for what I needed it for, and I really am actually quite happy with the building layout, or the battle mat layout that's used them so far. It was the 3rd Battletech showing on the channel, which was also the viewer's verdict version of that series. Too many V words. So if you want to see the full set for a longer period of time than I'm showing here, that is definitely the video to watch, because they were all included. Let's see, we've also got one of these. I think that's very similar to one I've already shown. I told you, they're all Tetris blocked over here. They're all kind of joining into each other. A couple of large, and it's perfect size to have a mech that can jump onto them as well, which is also why I finally decided, you know what, just do them. Learning to sort of do zenithal definitely helped as well, because I knew I didn't want to do contrast paint on these because it just wouldn't work. So having that alternative works out very, very nicely. As I know that's just almost literally the same, Got 2 of them the same, and then finally another one of these. So just as a note, they're all done. Again, if you want a better look at them on a battlefield, kind of did like a nighttime moon-based setting, and I think it looks pretty nice, honestly. I'm going to get these out of the way now though, so we can talk about the miniatures. Alright, so let's talk about the thrice full Discord for Warhammer Underworlds. As I say, they've already been in a couple of battle reports. I did fully finish these technically before 2023 was over. And it was an exercise in various shades of purple and pink, and that's really about it. Mostly shades of purple. I used the same colours across all 3 of them, so I'll just kind of show them off as I talk. But I used Magus Purple, I used Luxian Purple, or sorry, yeah, it is Magus Purple. The pink contrast paint, whose name I'm blanking on now that I've got myself confused with the shades of purple. I also used Leviathan Purple, I think it's called. It's very similar to the old purple contrast paint, but not quite as inadequate. Like, I'm not a big fan of the old Shyless Purple, but I think I did use a bit on the darkest parts of this. And then Null Oil over the top, Nazragil for the gold parts on top of Leadbelcher Silver. But, oh, and for all the blue, whatever they are, adornments, I think that was just Talus. No, that was Frostheart. That was Frostheart for all of them. So that is the boss of the warband, and then you have your stabby assassin, and then your mage. Very fun models. A little bit of a struggle to put together with the push fit, specifically on Vexmore, which is the large one I just showed you. He isn't actually fully pressed together. I just couldn't get it to do it, and I hate push fit. But I would also hate having to clip off every single pin to be able to just glue them properly. So it's kind of like well, what do you do? Hopefully in focus, because I'm really happy with how the evil looking white eyes on this guy turned out. They turned out okay on the other 2, but on this guy I lucked into it looking really nice. Oh yeah, their base. To get that sand colour, because that's kind of what the official paint jobs have, I think that is just, oh, what did I do? Oh no, I'm having trouble remembering what I used now. I did some little trick on top of the base coat. It is just the base coat with the dog hitting my camera. Why are you doing that? Are you stuck under there? I'm trying to remember a paint colour. I didn't use Agrat's Shade, I used the sepia tone paint, and I don't remember, wash, sorry, and I don't remember the name of it, and I'm pretty sure I just slopped it on top of the base coat, and it actually just created like the perfect sand look. I might be misremembering. Unfortunately, as I say, I did paint these a little bit while ago, but I had to wait to include them in a fuller video. So I don't quite remember if that's what I did. It was definitely something like that, and it's going to bug me now that I can't remember. But I remember looking at it and being like, I wanted to recreate a paint effect. It might just be Skeletal Horde, but it doesn't look it. Skeletal Horde's a little darker than that, and I probably used that for the skulls that are in the sand around them. So I'm pretty sure that's why I was forced to do something a bit different. So I think that's what I did. Maybe it is just Agrat's Shade over it, actually. It's just a wash on top of the base coat. I'm just having trouble remembering which wash it is that I used. Hopefully, like the thing with these Slanesh demons is they're all so weird looking that the camera is not sure what to focus on, because they've got tentacles and backpack things, or I don't know, what even would you call these? I don't know what purpose they serve. They're just there. But either way, very cool warband. I wouldn't say I've had much fun with them in terms of their usage on the table, but I like their weird mechanics of manipulating and giving upgrades to the opponent, but they're kind of like, they've got a massive downside, so you've got to weigh it up. I like that mechanic they have, and the kind of temptations they do. It's a very fun way to play. Don't know about their effectiveness. And I guess just as a matter of note, because I'm pretty sure I showed off something similar last time, I painted this is for Warcry, not Underworlds, obviously, but it's just another bit of that fencing. It's boring. It's just Snakebite Leather, Leadbelcher Silver, Skeletal Horde, and a wash. Super simple, super tedious. Still got 2 larger parts to do. Oh, and Basilicanum, not Basilicanum Grey, sorry, Storm Vermin Fur for the Greystone with non-oil over the top. Still got 2 larger parts to do. It's working up the effort to do it when they all look like this. It's just they're varying sizes, and for me that's the part I don't like about scenery. It's just they're all so large, but even if they have detail, like look, that has fantastic detail with the skeletons like chained to the spikes, but it doesn't feel as fun as painting a miniature. I can't really explain why. It's just the way I feel about it. So next, from Rumble Slam, which you will hopefully have seen the viewer verdict on already and taken part in the little experiment, We've got someone whose name I can't remember that I like just because they've got the pumpkin, the headless pumpkin thing going on, and who I believe is called Ice. I'm pretty sure he's just called Ice or Frost or something. He's just a big chunk of ice that wrestles, you know. And he's hot off the press, actually. I literally finished him yesterday, so he might not actually be feature complete. We'll see how I feel about him looking back in a few days. Now let's quickly show off. This is Luxian Purple again, with a bit of Mantis Warrior Green and Gryph-hound Orange, Skeletal Horde, Lib Ultra Silver, and a wash. I'm pretty sure, oh, and some black for the boots. Pretty sure that's about it. I just like the model in general. I like Pumpkin Demons, liked it for Don't Look Back, and other stuff like that. If you've got a Pumpkin Demon, I'll enjoy painting it, most likely. Snakebite Leather for the straps as well, that I forgot. Don't really have much else to say about him. He's from a casino, if you're familiar with the game's terms. He's from a casino that's actually not in the rulebook because it was newly added. It's called the Keep, I think. It's kind of got a Knights of the Round Table theme. Not sure how he fits into that necessarily, but that's the casino he's originally from, as a kind of weaker star player with some buffs to help people out. It's got some people like a giant fat knight called Sir Cumference, for instance, and some goblins in a suit of armour called Sir Humon, which is quite funny. So Ice, I'm going to go with Ice. If that name is wrong, I apologise, because I'm pretty sure it's just called Ice, but I might be confusing him with, like, I don't know, the things in Skyrim are called Frost Atronax or something, aren't they? Either way, he's a big old chunk of ice. I picked him up in a sale, Christmas, well, it was either Christmas or Boxing Day. I think it was Boxing Day, a Boxing Day sale. That's a thing in the UK. And they were just selling off a bunch of winter themed minis, and Ice, Frost, whoever this is, was here, and I was like, that's a, I originally looked at this model and I was like, I didn't like how it looked like he didn't fit on his base, but having seen him now, I mean, it's fine, no problem at all. So base coat and grace here, Frost Heart on top with a little bit of Talisar Blue mixed in on certain parts while it was still damp, then a dry brushing of Oathwind Grey, and for his mankini or banana hammock, whatever you want to call it, that is just Mantis Warrior Green with non-oil over the top. And I did use that new Citadel Blue wash that came out with the second wave of contrast paints. A Tyrian Blue, I want to say it's called. I think it's a T word. So it's something like that. I used a bit of that to tone down the dry brush I did with Oathwind Grey because I did it a bit too strongly. And honestly, I'm kind of happy with how it came out. I didn't do anything special to his face, by the way. That's just like, that's the paint sunk in there. And because the paint on the outside is brighter, it's created that nice, it looks very similar to how the face looks in the official paint job, if I say so myself, which is exceptionally rare for something I've painted. So he is fun, and we'll hopefully get to see him in the ring, throwing people about at some point in the future. Oh yeah, one thing to note, since I have been complaining about the Rumble Slam miniatures doing the thing, I've been doing some testing, and for some reason, if you, after washing them and letting them dry, which I always do, if you spray paint the base coat instead of applying with a brush, it goes on near perfectly. Not 100% perfectly, but near perfectly. And I don't know what's in the spray paint version of Grey Seer that isn't in the... Actually, you know what? It's not entirely perfect, because I noticed there's some parts under the back of his head there where the paint isn't sticking. But beyond that, I don't know what's different about the spray paint. Maybe it has a different type of sealant in it or something, but it makes it not do the thing like 95%. So I might have to try that on a Modifius model at some point to see if that helps, although spray paint is more tedious to use on small miniatures and also more expensive, so that's usually why I don't bother unless it's something large. Anyway, let's cover the next two together. We have Kid Flash for the Batman miniature game, and technically, well, it's weird, we'll talk about it in a second. And then also the newer Green Lantern as part of the models I picked up in Night Models Black Friday sale. They were selling off the DC Universe stuff dirt cheap, which probably means the game is dead. I noted during that unboxing, when I was showing off Kid Flash here, that I was like, I can't explain it, but this just looks like a second edition sculpt to me, which is struggling to get in focus, I apologise. Give it a second. It's really taking a while, huh? There we go. It looked like a second edition sculpt to me, and I couldn't really put a finger on why, but someone in the comments mentioned you're absolutely correct. It is a second edition miniature, because he's in the DC Universe hardback rulebook, which came out before 3rd edition Batman. He's in the back of that, which is so weird. So he is a second edition sculpt that for whatever reason got delayed, and now that he's released for the Batman miniature game, he doesn't... Oh, I've noticed some of the paint is peeled off on his leg. That's odd. Huh, I wonder how that happened. Well, anyway, he's in that, but he doesn't have rules for the DC Universe game. He might have old rules if there was an old miniature of him. I think there was an old miniature of him. But in terms of new rules or being mentioned anywhere for that game, which he's in the rulebook for, nothing. Also worth noting, in that version that's in the hardback rulebook, he is the scale that Night Models used to use for Batman and DC Universe. They don't use that for Batman now, they use this scale. It's kind of copying Crisis Protocol, where they're getting a bit chunkier. The scale creep is very, very real. The best example ever is 2nd edition Nightwing to 3rd edition Nightwing. Ridiculous. But you can actually see it here as well, because this is the old scale Green Lantern, and hopefully that is apparent enough, the difference in the size of specifically their head, but just their bodies in general, their arm length, arm girth, their chest girth. Like, these are not the same size of model. The head is the most obvious, because again, keep in mind this model in the rulebook is the same size as this, so there is proof of the scale creep for the newer Batman stuff, and there's a lot of reasons why that can be. I'm not going to bother pontificating about what it might be, but depending on how cynical I am, my answer will change. Anyway, let's talk about Green Lantern. I had to match him up to the old Green Lantern releases in this series that you can go back and see, so I literally went back and watched because I couldn't remember what I used, for the record. That's why this series is good for me too. So I went back and watched when I showed off the Green Lantern Corps and listened to what colours I used and did the same again, which meant I had to crack out Warp Lightning, which I haven't used for a long time. It's still the original Warp Lightning I bought when Contrast Paints released. There's very little left. It's not a great paint in general. The newer greens are fantastic, but Warp Lightning isn't that great. And it's starting to show it's doing that very shiny thing. So he's overly shiny, which I do remember being an issue, but I had to have a match up because otherwise it would have bugged me. So I had to do it. If you want to see or hear a full rundown of the colours used, go watch when I showed off the whole Green Lantern Corp and just see that. I literally went back myself to use the video to match this. So the only difference is Basilicanum Grey, and then I used Ultimum Grey as a dry brush to try and add some detail to it, because his base is just huge, empty, boring stone. If he was on a one size down base, it would be perfect, but they just went through a phase where every notable character in DC Universe had to be on this size of base, whether what was on the base warranted or not. They did it for Batman as well, like the Deathstroke, the Terminator miniature. It should not be on a base this size, and it doesn't look good as a result of the amount of wasted space, unfortunately. But I'm happy to have him done. There's not much point. Like back when he was first released, and in that same video I mentioned I didn't pick him up then, just because there's nothing wrong with the current, or what was then the current version of Hal, and there still isn't any, you can use his new stat card with the old miniature on a suitable size base and be fine. He technically has some auras, so being on a larger base actually is a net benefit because you measure from the base, but that's no reason to necessarily get a boring looking base like that one. I was going to move on, but I did totally forget to mention the colours I used on Kid Flash. I tried to do the kind of like he's just coming out of the Speed Force lightning effect to try and add some character and make it look less boring. I don't really know if I achieved it, but it's just Bal Red, Gryph-hound Orange for his red hair. The base is that same new blue wash I was just talking about for ice, so Tyrian blue, whatever it's called, with a little bit of Frost Heart and a little bit of Briar Queen Chill, just to try and create that I've just come out of the Speed Force effect. I think from a distance it looks okay, right? We'll not be seeing him in any kind of battle report for a while. He's got to have his Speed Force deck, which I can't print out right now, and even if I did, I can't play the Batman game until they release the card pack, and even then if I decide to buy it, because I think it's going to be super expensive. It's going to be over 300 cards, of just objective cards as well. You still have to print out your own character cards. They're not going to do that for you. I'm hoping they'll include the Speed Force deck. If they don't, it's becoming more and more apparent that Night Models are going back to their old ways, where they were mostly just focused on producing miniatures. They didn't really care about the game systems attached to the miniatures, and they're definitely falling back on that, and I think that might have something to do with one of the key people behind Batman dying. just before the release of 3rd edition. The 3rd edition rulebook is in his memory, and I think maybe them going just started this cascade of them falling back on their old habits and what felt right to them, which is making cool looking miniatures. Not necessarily ones that are fun to clean or assemble or are clear to assemble, but ones that are just cool looking once they're done, and who cares if the game attached to them is good or not. That seems to me to be the stance they're taking, which is awful, but it's up to them. Anywho, I did a video about the Batman miniature game, so there's no need to talk about that here. Let's talk about the last thing today, which is the entire other half, the Clan Jade Falcon half of the Alpha Strike battle set, or box rather, I don't know what it's called. It's not actually called a starter set, but either way, one half of it is 8 Inner Sphere mechs. You can paint them up however you want, of course, but they're meant to be Northwind Highlanders up against Clan Jade Falcon, and you get a little novella that kind of takes you through the story of them fighting each other with that box. So it's 5 on 8. They're stronger in general. They've been in a battle report against each other. It was a viewer verdict video as well, so I hope you've watched it and cast your vote. Even if Battletech isn't necessarily your thing, you do get a chance to flex your criticism muscles if you want by watching the viewer verdict series. That's partially why that series is a thing. Hopefully to just also give new stuff a chance on the channel that otherwise would just fall flat. But anyway, painted these all the same, so I'll just kind of show them off as I talk. It's unfortunate that it's also a shade of green, but I used that new Gut Ripper Flesh contrast paint that I really like. It'll be great for, I mean, presumably Games Workshop want it for orcs, hence its name, but for Flesh Eater Courts, I imagine it's going to be fantastic. I do intend to use it for that, and for the colours of Clan Jade Falcon, at least as they appear in the cards that come with the game, it seems really good to me. So I spray painted all these, didn't have any issues with that. I then went over all of them with that Gut Ripper Flesh contrast paint. I then went back to my pot of Grey Seer, picked out what I wanted to be the yellow parts and the cockpit windows, etc. That's having trouble coming into focus, isn't it? This is the Pouncer. It's struggling. And then I went over those with Iron Fist yellow, I think that is. It's not a Yandin yellow, definitely not a Yandin yellow. Went over that, and then picked out the silver bits just with Lead Belcher Silver, used Gryph-hound Orange for their cockpit windows, and then just a wash of non-oil over the top, and done. Well, I used some Talisar Blue to pick out their PPCs and lasers and stuff. That's just what I like doing. Mad Cat here / Timberwolf. For their base, I used that same AK technical paint, the one I love talking about now. I've been falling in love with it because it's so... you can do anything with it. In this case, I applied it. It's supposed to be just a flat concrete colour. I went over it with Flesh Tear Red. No, that's not what I mean. Oh, I'm blanking on it now. The skin tone, the brown skin tone contrast paint. Fire Slayer Flesh, that's the one. There we go. I went over it with Fire Slayer Flesh and then also a non-oil wash over the top, and it's created kind of like a Martian effect that I really, really like, and it was super easy and effective for what I needed it to do. And I like how it looks. I'm trying to have each like different company or clan or whatever I do for Battletech to look different on the base, and it was so simple and it stands out, I feel, and I actually really like how it turned out. Don't have much else to say about them. You can go watch the viewer verdict video as I said, but yeah, really nice. So that is going to do it. I keep on thinking these are going to turn out short, and then I realise I just keep rambling, so they don't. But that is going to do it for the first Getting Stuff Painted of 2024. Off to a good start, although again cheating partially because some of these were painted in advance. But I have to wait till I have enough stuff to talk about. Speaking of which, next time there will definitely be more Battletech. I'm in the process of painting up a different little company of 5 mechs in a totally different style, totally different base style as well, so trying to flex my creative muscles. We'll see how that goes. Maybe some Rumble Slam, not sure about Underworlds, and I'm not sure if I want to give away anything else. I have projects long term for 2024, Aristea being one of them, which I got on Black Friday. I'm not sure when in 2024 that'll appear or when I'll start trying to tackle those miniatures, but that's definitely on the cards for some point this year. The DC Universe stuff, possibly. The Batman stuff, that's unfortunately dropping so far down the pecking order because it's not like I can play anything with them really. I mean, I can play a version of the rules that's no longer valid, I suppose, but it doesn't feel right. But anyway, if you want to show me what you've been painting, you can do so via my Discord. And if you don't know where the Discord is, swing by Twitch when I'm streaming and I'll happily share it. I put it in a members only post, I think, in the community tab, and there's other ways to find it as well. I am also on Blue Sky now, although to be honest I've forgotten what my name on there is, and I'm mostly just posting pictures of miniatures, like early previews of stuff I've been painting. Nothing else. Maybe occasional pictures of my dog. That's about it. Anyway, hope you're enjoying the new year. Don't celebrate too hard. There is a whole year ahead of you to paint a pile of grey shame, and there is no escape. Enjoy the rest of your day and see you next time. Ta-ta for now.